The December patch has brought tons of fun new changes to SUPERVIVE, including quest changes as well as some much needed hunter updates. So today we're going to talk about the 5 big winners and losers after the most recent patch. Let's get right into it. The first loser on the list should come to no surprise to anybody, it's Hudson. His whole kit got nerfed this past Monday for the hotfix patch, which worsened his mobility, made his range worse, and just gave him less uptime on barbs. So across his entire kit, he just kind of got giga nerfed. I'm not sure if he's completely terrible or not. I mean, I'm pretty sure considering the fact that now Oath and Zeph are also getting nerfed. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a whole lot of Hudson, which I think is pretty good for the game. I think we've got enough of Hudson after the first 2 weeks of SUPERVIVE. But if you choose to run him, I don't think he's going to be necessarily horrible or that you couldn't climb to legend with this character. I just think that because a lot of the characters that were good alongside him are now getting nerfed, he's probably going to be one of the weakest characters in the game for quite some time. So now let's move on to the number 2 position, which is Brall. Sure, he got some minor nerfs to his ultimate that affects his power spikes and doesn't really make him the first pick in my opinion anymore, but that still means that he's a loser even if he's not just the worst character in the game, maybe like a Hudson is. It does force the Brall to slow down and play a bit more methodically, even though he is still pretty strong, and especially after the quest nerfs, not being level 5 day 1, that's a pretty big deal. The fact that he needs to take a fight without his volcanic rebuke is a pretty big deal. This is where I'm gonna have to clarify though, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that even though Brall is a loser on this list, doesn't necessarily mean that he's not an A tier or even an S tier character. I don't know where exactly I'd put him on that tier list yet, and that's why we're just having this discussion. After all, I mean, I just have the patch now. I'm just recording this on the first day, but it's important to know that he is losing some power, and maybe other characters that we'll talk about later in that winners section will be able to overcome this hump that they've been having for quite some time and maybe even be better than Brall. Coming in as loser number 3, we have Oath, which, I mean, everything about him and all of the patch that happened today, it's just clear that this dude is losing. His heal got nerfed, his shield got hard nerfed, and you can't heal the shield unless you have it up. This means that if your shield breaks, you cannot heal it for it to come back. You have to wait for the whole cooldown time. It just makes him have a whole lot less uptime, which is a really big deal. This is how it used to be in alpha before they just hard buffed him when he really didn't need it. So I'm pretty sure Oath will still be playable, but with all things considered, I still think he's going to be pretty darn difficult for people to be good at. And on top of all this shield and heal nerfs, he also just can't CC you into a wall nearly as effective. It's 50% as effective, meaning that before, if you bonked someone into a wall, they would get stunned for a second. Now it's only 0.5 seconds. So before, while you could hard CC someone for 2 seconds with the full combo, now it's only 1 second with the full combo. So this is going to give people a lot more opportunities to just get away from the Oath, even if you do get stuck in a corner against him. Overall, this is probably the biggest L of the patch, without maybe Hudson is a little bit more of a big L, but I still think he's playable. Oath is going to be hard for anyone to really get into, which brings us in to our loser number 4, which is Zeph, which isn't as big of an L as Oath is, but still it's realistically quite a big L. His heal got nerfed by 15%, which isn't that bad, but the thing that is pretty bad for him is that his heal doesn't come out as fast. There's actually a pretty substantial innate cooldown that you can't just keep bursting healing people. So I think this is generally just pretty healthy for the game, but it definitely does make you have to be a little bit more cognizant of like, okay, my team is about to take damage. Maybe I need to send out a heal a little bit earlier. It's going to make it so you have a little bit more to think about on this character. That being said, it hurts the character a lot, but I still think that Zeph is going to be a strong meta-defining character in scrims because, like I said in a lot of videos before, there's no other support character that does it the way he does. I mean, you have Oath, but his heal's now just not that good. Then you have Luna, but she's also just not that good. I think the real strength of Zeph is his damage now and his grenade, being able to set up plays for his team, which honestly, for supports, I think that's the way it kind of should be. But now let's move on to Kingpin at loser number 5. I don't think Kingpin is going to be a bad character. I still actually think he's going to be quite good. But the reality is that he's really just losing a lot because of his dash, because of the amp nerfs. The fact that he can't just space glide as easily is quite a big deal. I mean, it's going to be a lot harder to get close and try to be that assassin Kingpin style. I still think it's going to be very doable. It's just not going to be as easy as it was before. On top of this, stealth nerfs also impact Kingpin quite hard because now Stealth Cloak does drain a lot of mana. you don't usually run a mana blade, or you might use a mana blade on Kingpin, I'm not entirely sure, but even if you are, you're going to be draining that mana. You're not going to have infinite invis unless you are able to find that delicate mana battery as well. The other thing too is that because Oath is getting nerfed, one of the biggest counters to Kingpin being Joule is now going to get played a whole lot more, and it's really difficult to stop the Joule. On top of that, Zeph also is going to struggle a little bit more against Joule because, again, Oath isn't in the game as frequently, so Joule's just going to be able to get on top of Zeph, and that's like the one character you weren't able to out-heal before because of just how heavy her burst damage is. So overall, I think the real reason why these characters are losing is the culmination of a lot of different things, but that being said, I still think we're going to see them in scrims and in high-level competitive play for quite a while. But that's enough discussion about the losers of this SUPERVIVE patch. Let's start talking about the winners. And there's actually quite a few interesting ones. The first one being Celeste. So much is opening back up for this character. Hudson is not as strong, which means your wall is actually going to be meaningful. It's not going to crumble as easily. On top of that, Oaths being changed, having less shield, the shield not being up as often, is going to allow Celeste to have a lot more uptime in the fight, which is pretty much just going to make Celeste a better character than Oath, in my opinion. Again, I am talking a little early here, but if I were to make a tier list, Celeste is definitely over top of Oath right now. With all of these things combined, I think Celeste finally has place again in this meta, and we're going to be seeing her a lot in scrims and in ranked at the top level. But enough talk about Celeste. We already talked about this character in the number 2 slot. We have Joule. Like I said, less Hudson means less Oath, and Oath getting nerfed is absolutely huge. Oath counters Joule so hard. It's like the one character that Joule really can't deal with, and because he's not going to be in the game as much, Joule now gets to free reign a lot of people. Like I said before, Kingpin will be strong still, but Joule is easily just going to shut him down as well. And to be honest, Joule has always been a really good character. It's just that Oath makes her a little bit more methodical in approach. To be honest, Joule might be the best character in the game. Like there is a reasonable take to be had that maybe Joule is the new S tier character, the top of the cream of the crop even, that is really going to define this new meta that we're going into, especially with her new skin in the game. It just seems a little bit too obvious. It just seems like Joule might just be a little bit too strong. But at the end of the day, maybe there's other characters that are easier that you can just get more value with, because at the end of the day, Joule is a pretty difficult character, but I do think we're going to be seeing her at the top levels of play for quite some time. But that leaves us to our winner number 3 slot with Ghost. And to be honest, Oath, I do think people are still going to try to play him, but Ghost is going to be the big reason why Oath struggles so damn much, because Ghost absolutely decimates Oath shields. This really opens up Ghost to then not only just get to play the game a little bit more, but also just not get run down on so easily, because there's not going to be a shield in front of him. Maybe he's actually going to get to use his nade to burst someone down. As before, it would just get blocked by a shield and you're going to have a really difficult time. That being said, I don't think Ghost is going to be a meta-defining pick. I just think he is a big winner because now he has actual space to play with. And it's going to make so many other gun-based characters have such an easier time, and he really is just going to fill the spot that Hudson had before. Will he be meta? Probably not, but he will definitely be much more playable than he was before. The next winner we have is Void. He is going to be a huge winner because he's really good at countering the characters that we think are going to be good after all these nerfs have gone through. That being really hard dive type of compositions. We're talking like Kingpin, we're talking Brall, we're talking maybe even Shiv. Characters that want to get in, they are now going to have to deal with Void, possibly using his singularity to pull everyone in. That is going to be a really big defining character role for Void within the next couple of weeks in this patch. So I really think that's going to be strong. On top of Zeph having less burst healing is actually going to let that singularity find picks a lot more consistently. Obviously, if you got it before, you probably were already going to kill someone in the singularity, but now it's just going to be that much more consistent if someone goes down in the middle of the fight and you don't get to use it as fast. Overall, this is a really W patch for Void. Kind of like Ghost though, I'm not sure if he's going to quite be the best. And last, our final winner is going to be Felix. If Oath isn't doing well and you still want someone to be an engagement tool, that is going to be Felix. Anti-heal is still going to be really strong, even though all of the supports aren't doing as great right now. I still think that anti-heal is going to be a realistic, like, important thing to have on your composition. Maybe not going to be the most important thing, but not something I'm complaining if I'm bringing. And he's definitely already been pretty strong, so I think this is just going to push him up that extra little level to get a little bit more interesting meta picks out of him. So that's going to end off our list, and I just want to address something. I know the game is in a pretty rough spot right now, and I know I haven't made a video about it, and everyone's been talking about it in the comments, and if you want me to make a video about it, I definitely will. But with all of the new stuff coming along the way, I do still think the future for SUPERVIVE is pretty bright. It's just going to take some time for it to cook. After all, this is an open beta, and they're actually treating it as such. But I appreciate you guys all so much for watching, even in this difficult time for us. But until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.